Hello everyone, today me, Aginta&Nabila will present about process costing. This is our table of content. I will present about process costing number 1 and number 2, and Nabila will present about number 3, 4, and 5. The first one is process costing. The definition of process costing is a form of operation costing whereby costs that are changed to process or operations and average over units produced. It is used by firms when there is a continuous flow of identical or homogeneous products where it not possible to distinguish one unit from another. Next is characteristic. The characteristic of process costing is the process cost centers are set up where all direct and indirect costs incurred during the period are charged to each process so that the total process cost for each is obtained. Next is total process costs of each process are then shared equally among all the cost units produced in that process. And next is output of one process becomes the raw material or input for the next process. And the last one is separate accounts that are kept for each process. Next is the difference between process costing and job costing. For process costing, the accumulation of cost is to process, but for job costing, the accumulation of cost is to job or contract. On process costing, the products consist like units, identical manufacturing specifications, and more suited to mass productions. For job costing, manufactured according to customer specifications, and each job has its own characteristic. Also, in process costing, the product cost is an average cost for each process, but for job costing, costs are identified directly with each job. The last one, process costing, are computed for the costs that are computed for each process at the end of the period or the process. For job costing, the costs computed for each job after the job is completed. The next one is process loss. Process loss can happen when quantity, weight, or volume of process output is less than the quantity, weight, or volume of input. So output is smaller than input. There are possible causes. The first one is waste. In certain type of process, material physically disappears due evaporations or shrinkage, discharge substances having no value. The examples are like dust, smoke, and gases. The next is scrap, a kind of material residue from certain type of manufacturing process, usually insignificantly in quantity, and sales value is relatively low or can be sold at a lower price. And the next causes is spoiled work, output of a process that does not meet quality standard, sold as seconds or in bulk without further processing. The last cause is defective units, output of a process that does not meet the quality standard, but can be brought back to normal standard by rectifications. Next is type of losses. The first one is normal loss. Normal loss is a level of losses expected in the process operations and it is unavoidable, such as loss of weight due to evaporation or melting. These losses, which expected under normal condition, also inherent in the processing operations and is determined based on past experience. And since these losses arises from the nature process, the cost of such losses is included as a part of the cost of the production. Normal loss divided by 2, the first one is with no scrap value. The good production units will absorb the loss and the normal loss becomes a part of production cost and it will increase the cost of output per unit. And there's no entry made for normal loss as the money value is not involved. For normal losses having scrap value, it will reduce the cost of good units. Next is abnormal loss. When actual production loss more than normal loss or when the actual output is less than normal loss, and such losses are unexpected and controllable and should not be charged into productions. Such losses are caused by abnormal conditions like carelessness, plant breakdown, and substandard material. It should be investigated and steps taken to prevent recurrence. Also, abnormal loss has to absorb full share of process cost since it is not absorbed by good production. Next is abnormal gain. Abnormal gain is happen when the loss less than the actual loss less than normal loss or actual output more than normal output. It is always 100% completed since abnormal gain from the output will processed completely and pass the next process. The cost is computed on the same basis as a good production. And for the summary, the difference between normal losses and abnormal losses is normal losses is expected in the process operations and it is unavoidable, but for abnormal losses it is unexpected losses but it is avoidable. Normal losses also uncontrollable and expected under normal condition, but for abnormal losses it can be controlled, therefore it's not charged to production. For normal losses determined based on normal condition, for abnormal losses is caused by abnormal condition, just like carelessness, plant breakdown, and others. For normal losses included as a part of the cost of goods productions, but abnormal losses is not absorbed by good productions and does not affect the cost of productions. And next will be explained by Nabila.
Next is work in progress. So in accounting, next next agenda, the definition. So in accounting, a work in progress or WIP is account in an inventory account that includes goods that are in the process of being produced but are not finished yet. This account represents the cost of resources used but not yet turned into complete products. So basically, WIP have a lower unit cost than fully completed production. Thus, when opening WIP and closing WIP exists, CPU cannot be computed by simply dividing the total cost with the number of units still in the process. For the example, we have 1,000 units of fully completed for production and 2,000 units of partly completed production. To find the CPU, we cannot add that together. So for this problem, we must estimate the percentage degree of completion of WIP and multiply this by the number of units in progress at the end of the period, and then we can total them. Next. Uh, no, previous. Sorry. So I want to add. No, previous agenda. Uh, so I will add some some information. So whenever there are partly completed units, material may be classified into A. Material introduced. The degree of completion may not be 100%. It is shown separately from input material. And B. Input material. It refers to the output from previous process. And the degree of completion always 100%. Next, opening work in progress. Next is opening work in progress. When there is a closing work in progress at the end of the one period, this will become opening work in progress at the beginning of the next period. An assumption must be made regarding the allocation of this opening stock to the current accounting period to determine the unit cost for the period. There are two alternative assumptions. So the